Tomorrowland finally made it to the United States. Thousands flying across the world, dressing up for a dream weekend, only to be abandoned in the mud, miles from shelter while starving and freezing. In 2013, the most magical festival in the world is crossing the Atlantic. Tomorrowland, Belgium's crown jewel of electronic music with. They had built a reputation as the ultimate raving experience. Massive stages that looked like they belonged in another dimension, production values that made Coachella look like a county fair, and crowds that estimated around 180,000 attendees. So when Tomorrowland's organizers, ID&T, announced TomorrowWorld would be bringing that same magic to America, EDM fans lost their minds. The location? Chattahoochee Hills in Georgia, 8,000 acres of rolling farmland about 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. It wasn't just another festival. This was supposed to be an immersive 3-day journey into electronic music paradise. For 2 years, 2013 and 2014, TomorrowWorld delivered on that promise. The stages were insane. A volcano stage that literally looked like an active volcano, fantasy book-themed areas, and production that made you feel like you'd stepped into another world. The forest setting added this mystical vibe that you just couldn't get anywhere else in America. By 2015, TomorrowWorld had cemented itself as the destination festival for electronic music in the US. Tickets were selling out. International DJs were calling it their favorite American festival, and fans were planning their entire year around those 3 magical days in September. What could possibly go wrong? Friday, September 25th, 2015. The forecast called for scattered showers. Nothing unusual for Georgia in late September. But Mother Nature had other plans. The rain started Friday afternoon and didn't stop. We're not talking about a light drizzle that adds to the festival atmosphere. This was relentless, heavy rain that turned 8,000 acres of farmland into what can only be described as a post-apocalyptic mud pit. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets really ugly, there was no ground preparation. No drainage systems, no contingency plan, nothing. The organizers had run this event for 2 years without major weather issues, so they just didn't prepare for rain at an outdoor festival in Georgia in September. By Saturday morning, the venue was completely impassable. Emergency vehicles couldn't move, and fans were literally losing shoes with every step. But the festival kept going. The music was still playing. People were still trying to have fun, sliding around in knee-deep mud like it was some kind of extreme sport. Then came the transportation nightmare. TomorrowWorld's shuttle system, the only official way to get in and out of the venue for most attendees, completely collapsed. Buses were getting stuck in the mud, drivers were refusing to navigate the treacherous roads, and the few shuttles that were running had waits of 4 to 6 hours. That's when people started walking. Thousands of festival goers trudging through miles of muddy back roads in the middle of the Georgia countryside. Cell service was spotty at best, as some walked 5 to 10 miles in the dark, in the rain, with no food, no water, and no idea when they'd reach civilization. By Sunday, day 3 of what was supposed to be a magical weekend, TomorrowWorld made a decision that would seal their fate forever. They announced that only camping ticket holders would be allowed back into the venue. Everyone else, thousands of people who had bought day passes or were staying in hotels, were locked out. No entry, no exceptions. The social media explosion was immediate and brutal. Facebook comment sections turned into war zones. Twitter was flooded with videos of people stuck in the mud, crying, angry, and demanding answers. Instagram stories showed the reality behind the fairy tale. Exhausted fans sleeping on top of vehicles, massive lines of people walking through mud in the middle of the night, and complete chaos. And TomorrowWorld's response? Radio silence for the first 24 hours. When they finally did respond, it was with generic apologies and promises to make things right that felt hollow after people had literally been abandoned in a field. When the dust settled, police reports from that weekend paint a picture of the mess. There were over 40 arrests reported, most of them drug-related, but also including charges for theft, assault, and public intoxication. Multiple medical emergencies led to hospitalizations, with people suffering from dehydration, hypothermia, and injuries from falls in the treacherous conditions. Even more disturbing were the reports of sexual harassment and assault that emerged in the weeks following the festival. But here's what really shows you how unprepared they were. Even the festival's own staff and volunteers were left stranded. Reports emerged of workers who hadn't been properly housed or fed, volunteers who had to walk miles through the mud just like paying customers, and security personnel who abandoned their posts because they couldn't physically get to them. The aftermath was swift and brutal. What had taken 3 years to build was destroyed in 3 days. The public relations disaster was unlike anything the festival industry had seen. Major music blogs, news outlets, and social media influencers were sharing horror stories from attendees. The festival's Facebook page became a graveyard of angry comments that the organizers eventually stopped trying to moderate. TomorrowWorld's credibility, and more importantly, ID&T's reputation in the American market, was completely shattered. In early 2016, the announcement came. TomorrowWorld would not be returning. The event that was supposed to be America's answer to Tomorrowland was canceled indefinitely. The organizers cited logistical challenges, but everyone knew the real reason. They couldn't afford another disaster like 2015, and the American public wouldn't trust them even if they tried. The refund situation was its own nightmare. Initially, TomorrowWorld offered no refunds for Sunday's canceled access, claiming that camping ticket holders had received the full experience. After massive public pressure and threats of lawsuits, they eventually issued partial refunds, reportedly around $2.5 million total. But many attendees said it didn't come close to covering their actual losses when you factored in the expenses. TomorrowWorld 2015 didn't just die, it became a cautionary tale that still gets referenced today whenever festivals face weather challenges or logistics failures. While Tomorrowland continues to thrive in Belgium and has expanded to other international markets, they've never attempted another large-scale American festival. The irony is that TomorrowWorld's tagline was, "Live today, love tomorrow, unite forever." But for the thousands who lived through that nightmare weekend, unity was far from the fact. TomorrowWorld 2015 was supposed to be an escape, but for many, it became a nightmare. And unlike the music, that silence never dropped.